I love to study people. I like to study in general, but people, I like to observe them, their behavior, and particularly people who have Asperger syndrome, who have high functioning autism. I love to observe their behavior because, well, I am one. And as I watch other people, I learn from them about me. And as other Aspies watch me and others, they learn about themselves as well. All right, now there are some things that I observed over the past almost 70 years, like 7 decades. I've been doing this, studying people, not just people with Asperger syndrome. But about Aspies, there's some things that I've learned that, okay, they're a little eccentric, but there's some things that are just stand out about them. These are not necessarily bad things, not necessarily good things, but they're just things. Let's talk about them. I came up with 8 of these. Now, as you observe people with Asperger syndrome, you may notice other things that are not on my list. So if you want to tell everyone else, sure, let's do it. Just put that on put whatever it is in the comment section below. But number one is it seems to me that people with Asperger syndrome doesn't apply to everybody, but it seems that they love to chase after unattainable objectives. You can't accomplish this thing, you can't get this done, but there's something about, just going after it and trying to accomplish something, and so they pursue it as if they can get it done. And I'm wondering, what is it in the mind of Aspies that make us do that? And as I thought about it, I thought, I love to take trips. I don't do it much anymore because I've got this problem with inflammation and traveling is a little bit difficult. But I love to take trips. But unlike most people, or unlike myself when I was younger, I don't drive 90 miles an hour. Just see how fast I can get to wherever I'm going. But instead, I've learned that the trip itself, the traveling is part of the trip. So stop, investigate, look at places, do things, have new experiences along the way. So the destination is not the trip, but the trip is the trip. And that's kind of the same thing. When we strive or pursue unattainable objectives, it's like we're taking a road trip and we're enjoying the trip. It's not just, solving the problem, but it is the process of solving the problem is something that seems to be very enjoyable to a lot of Aspies. Okay, yeah, maybe you're the exception, and it's okay. No two of us are alike, you know that. But it is something that, I've seen quite a bit. Number two is what I call creative stimming. Now, there's probably a technical term for this, but I don't know what it is, so I just call it creative stimming. And stimming, is stimulating, where you self-stimulate, you rock back and forth, or you twiddle with your hair, whatever. But some way that I stim is I just kind of, what do you call that, doodling? Draw little pictures. I have this thing, I've done this for years, where I will draw smiley faces. Okay, then I'll draw a frown face, or then I'll draw a flat face. I just like to doodle, and why do I do that? Well, one thing I've discovered is if I'm trying to pay attention, like in class when I was a kid, which I didn't do very well, but I'm trying to pay attention, I would doodle to keep, well, it was kind of like absorbing the energy that would distract me from what was being said. So as long as I'm doodling, I can pay attention. The problem is the teacher thinks just the opposite. This guy is doodling. He's not paying attention. He's paying attention to his doodles. Now, the doodle is a tool that I use to pay attention. So I call that creative stimming because I like to draw designs. Took art class, junior high school. I remember one of my classmates looked at what I was drawing and said, "What is that?" Because it didn't look like anything. It was a design. It had no form or function. It wasn't anything in particular. And I did like to design cars, and I would, when I was little, and I would send them off to the, Ford Motor Company with a little note, "Hey, if you want to use my design, go ahead and do it." What am I, 5 years old? But, I like to doodle. I love to draw designs. I like to draw sometimes something that did actually look like something, but that I call creative stimming. It's a brain exercise because you need to exercise your brain. At least I did, and I'm assuming other Aspies do the same. Well, I know they do because some of them tell me. Number three is self-talk. I'm kind of bad about this. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I'm kind of bad about it because when I'm self-talking, sometimes I verbally speak. I mean, it's not just in my head. I'm thinking a thought and I say it out loud. My wife says, "What'd you say?" So, or people say, "I'm sorry, I didn't hear that." I didn't even realize I'm doing it. I'm just speaking out loud. I notice Aspies do this, kind of one of those, some people would call it a weird trait, eccentric trait, and I'm sure people do it who aren't Aspies, but it seems to be more noticeable among Aspies than neurotypical people. Number four is obsessed with solutions. People with Asperger syndrome seem to have this weird obsession. Remember, we talked about the road trip before, but they seem to have this obsession with solving the problem. And some Aspies will spend, I don't know, maybe hours or days or weeks or years trying to resolve a problem. People with Asperger syndrome tend to be problem solvers. They're just good at it. They find it challenging because, I guess, because we like to engage our brains. Again, that's kind of it's not creative stimming, but it's intellectual stimming. Call it that. So maybe that's what I should have called it. But we are obsessed with finding solutions, more so working on the solutions, and then the satisfaction of actually finding the solution. So it's like taking the road trip and, hey, I made it. I'm here. Now let's go back. Number five is we tend to fail on purpose. Yeah, I know it sounds weird, but fail on purpose. Now, during the years that I had a business, we would do what is called A/B testing. Now, this is back before the internet, and we would do our marketing primarily through direct mail, but sometimes display advertising. And what works? What works for our product? Well, you don't know until you try it. So you try it this way and you try it that way. You try this display ad and you try that display ad, and whichever one works out best, one ad is A and the other ad is B, and whichever one worked out the best, A or B, that's the one you go with. Direct mail piece would work out different types of direct mail pieces, different wording, And the point is, we knew that one of them was going to do better than the other, so or I knew that one of them was going to fail relative to the other one. But I was failing on purpose. I was doing that by design. Now, something I've learned, and you probably have learned this too. I'm nearly 70 years old. I've learned a few things over the decades, but you don't have to be 70 to learn this, is the most of what we learn is we learn through failure. And sometimes we fail on purpose. Not always, but you would be surprised how much I've learned about computers just by pushing the wrong button, accidentally pushing the wrong button and say, "Oh, I didn't know it did that. Now I learned something new." So I learned by failures. But sometimes we do that on purpose, And I will try things, again, on my computer. Wonder what happens if I do this. I don't think it's going to work. And if there's somebody in the room with me, they say, "What are you doing? That's not going to work." But there's something about trying it, knowing you're probably going to fail, but something about trying it. And just see what happens. I've noticed a lot of people with Asperger syndrome tend to rather do that. Fail on purpose. Number six is people with Asperger syndrome tend to plan ahead, or so it seems. And again, this may not be you, but people who are highly intelligent, or average or above intelligence, they are not impulsive. They think things through. For example, let's say you're going to go buy a car. Well, what an Aspie will do, or basically anybody that has above average intelligence, their frontal cortex kicks into gear, their executive function kicks into gear. They're not going to do something impulsively. They're going to do it intentionally, like buy a car. So you shop around for cars. What kind of car do you want? Well, then once you decide that, then you check out the different models that are available, and once you find one, then you got to investigate that. Got to see what's on it, got to see what all the gadgets are, and you really dive into that. I know some guys who take months to buy a car because they just got to do that research. They really want to plan ahead. That, by the way, is usually a positive thing. Now, there are some people out there, these crooked salesmen, and they'll say, one of the signs of greatness is you make snap decisions. No, you don't. I don't know any successful person who made his success by making a bunch of snap decisions. It's kind of like walking across a minefield. Okay, maybe you will succeed, but it's not because you walked across the minefield. It's because you're just very, very, very fortunate. So maybe there are people out there who made snap decisions and became successful. I don't know if any financially successful. But impulsivity is something that is not a common trait of people with Asperger syndrome. And I think maybe it's not Asperger's, but just because people who are who have high functioning autism tend to have at least average intelligence or higher. And part of executive function, again, as I said a moment ago, is people with high executive function are not high in impulsivity. Number 7, this is cool. I call this study staring. You ever just stare at something, just studying it? And you're not even necessarily aware that you're staring at the thing. Now, if the thing happens to be a person, that can be problematic. And when I was younger, particularly when I was a kid, teenager, young adult, I would study people. I mean, I just stare at them because in my mind, it was like watching a movie. You know, it was three-dimensional, but, you know, I was so disconnected from my environment. It's like I was living in this little bubble or whatever, and around me was this three-dimensional movie, and I just watching. I'm just studying this person, and the person doesn't always like that. Now, if it's a woman, they will take offense because they think you have, you know, thoughts. And if it's a man, they feel intimidated, like you're, you know, trying to egg them on, trying to intimidate or bully them with your eyes. So that's not always a good thing, but we do it, you know, at least I do it. I still do it more than I should, but I'm aware of it. So not so much anymore, particularly when it comes to staring at people, but I still do it. The other day I was sitting in a restaurant, didn't realize there's some woman there wasn't wearing makeup. So I just kind of looked at, yeah, she didn't look bad without makeup. I don't know why women wear makeup when they don't need to wear makeup. And next thing I know, she's glaring at me. I didn't even realize, you know, I wasn't even conscious, cognitive, sound intellectual. I wasn't even conscious of the fact that I was doing this. So yeah, it stuck with me, and here I am, nearly 70 years old. Number 8, people with Asperger syndrome, at least the ones that I know, true of me, maybe not you, is they get caught up in, well, daydreaming. This was a real problem I had when I was a kid, because that's why you went to school. Sit there and daydream, you know, let your mind wander. That's not a good way to learn anything, but it's kind of like, you know, I say the world around you is a movie, but you got this other movie, you got this other story going on inside your head. And so you daydream different scenarios. So you're cut off from social interaction in real time and space. So you make up for that by socially interacting in your head. And you got friends in your head. You know, the make-believe friend that you had when you were little? Well, sometimes that extends where it's not just that one individual, but who is with you for, you know, for days or weeks or even months on end. But these are people who just kind of come and go in and out of your mind as you think up different scenarios. That was a real problem when I was a kid. Don't do that so much anymore, but if you want to keep talking, there are 2 rectangles on the screen. Let's keep on our conversation. So all you got to do is click on one of those 2 rectangles if you want. We got dozens of videos, scores, maybe hundreds by now. So yeah, we can keep the conversation going. Just click on one of the 2 rectangles and the conversation won't end. Thanks for stopping by.